Recording in progress.
All right. Hello. I'm Mike Caton. Thanks for coming on here. Let's see. There were about 80 people who signed up for this. I don't know what this means. I just got a request to record this meeting locally. Sure. Okay. Anyway, I don't know how it's going to go on. We think we've got about, oh, they're jumping on really fast right now. 24 people so far. But I want to respect your time, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to record this, or I am recording this. What I'll do is I'll do a quick edit of it once we're done, and then I'll email it out. So if anybody jumps on later, anybody misses this, they can see it. And then let's do this. If you wouldn't mind just muting, and then I will basically go through a presentation that I have, and then at the end, throughout, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And then at the end, when I finish the presentation, I'll go through them and answer what I can. Okay. So I am going to share right now. Okay. Right, there we go. Okay, I want to first just start off by telling you who I am, because a lot of you I don't know. And if you just pick this up from a recent posting that I put out there, you might not know anything about me. But even if you've been watching some of my videos for a time, I don't ever really talk about myself. So just as a brief thing here, I have been a coach for many years. I don't even know how exactly many years. I'm thinking it around 1999 is when I started hurdle coaching. I started off at a middle school, did that 1 year there, then ended up starting a summer track team in USATF. This is all in Colorado. And then from there, I went to a high school program, and I took over as the head coach, and I was there for about 15 years. And I was the head coach and the hurdle coach. And during that time, as the years went on, progressively more and more success with my hurdlers, to the point where it was noticeable. Other coaches were asking me to help their kids. And in my summer program, kids from other schools were specifically coming to that so they can work with me. I'm sorry, if you could mute, that would be great. Anyway, where was I? And then, so that led into that. I ended up going to a larger school to coach hurdles there. And then also at the Division II school in Colorado Springs, University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. I helped out a couple of seasons with their hurdlers there, and that went fantastic. And then at around the time that COVID happened, that shut down the summer season. And so I just started doing private coaching because kids still wanted it. So I was seeing kids from around the city, but also other cities, within about an hour drive to come and work with me. And just throughout this whole process, started, I'm going to give me 1 second. Okay, so I just muted everyone. So throughout that process, I just realized how much there is a need to help other coaches, because it was strangely, my success was strangely repeatable, whatever I was doing. And I feel like I was even taking kids who honestly I didn't think were very talented, and then moving them up to qualify for state. And it just seemed kind of surprising. And it seems really obvious when you can see a school who has not just mine, but other, you can always tell what schools have good hurdle coaches, because they've always got hurdlers at the state meet. It's always a lot of the same ones over time. And so I just thought, there's just a need for this. And so I started putting some videos on YouTube, and then started acemethodcoaching.com. And the feedback that I've gotten over the last couple of years has just really affirmed that this is a good idea, that people really need it. Because you've got athletes who want to hurdle, but they're in areas and schools that don't have qualified coaches to help them, and they reach out to me. And I've got some really good coaches who have great experience in track and field, but they just don't know hurdles very well, and they need help for their hurdlers. So that's what this is all about. So just want to get that out there. Okay, so my 1 second. Okay, I know that. Okay, so just in case you don't know, I've got a series of videos on YouTube that are specifically for coaches. And what I'm going to cover today kind of touches on several of them, plus some other things I'm going to show you. One is how to identify your hurdlers, how to coach hurdles to beginners, how to coach hurdling drills, how to organize your practices, how to make hurdlers faster. And then also, I've got some products that I sell quite a few of. One of them is called Hurdling 101. And this is a step-by-step plan for taking somebody who's never hurdled and then teach them to be proficient and get through a race. And then I have another one called Hurdling 201, and that kind of picks it up from there. This is for the athlete that can get through a race. Maybe they can't three-step them all the way, and maybe they jump a lot and they struggle through it. But this would take them from that point, and how do they get better? How do they get to the point where hopefully they're racing in the fast heats at an invitational? And then Hurdling 301 is just the stuff that the majority of high school hurdlers will never get to, but the ones that can, the ones who reaching the 3 steps is no longer a problem, and they just want to get faster and faster. Maybe they want to go to college, or they just want to be really good. This would be where we pick this up. So anyway, the material I'm going to cover is going to just kind of glean stuff from the 101 and 201, but also those videos that I put on there. And just know that at the end of this, I'm going to give you a coupon code for $29 that you can apply to either one of these. Because just so you know, if you were to buy one of these individually, they're each $29, or have a bundle for $69. And I'll tell you more about it at the end. But just know that as you're listening to me, if you just want to just use that coupon all by itself, you might figure out over time which one you want to get, the 101 or the 201. Okay. So moving on. Now, when it comes to identifying your hurdlers, here's some things that you want to look for. Well, a couple things. One is you do need athletes who have some speed. Okay, there is a misconception that your fastest runners, you're going to make them your sprinters, and some kids who aren't so fast, but maybe you can make them a hurdler because they could be maybe good at that. Okay. And while there is some truth to that, they're never going to be a great hurdler unless they're fast. And they're probably going to have a hard time three-stepping unless they've got pretty good speed or long legs. Something to keep in mind. The other thing they need is athleticism because of the speed and the movement involved. They need to have confidence. And then a new thing that I just added this today from my new friend, Abby Lewis, is they need to be okay with falling, because they're going to fall at some point. I mean, it's possible to not fall, but it's also possible that you are going to fall, and they just need to be comfortable with that and know that once that happens, to get back up and try it again and not just give up. Okay, so things to look for. Now, I talk about this in one of my videos, and it's explained a lot in my hurdling no, I'm sorry, this is explained a lot in my hurdle training plan, which I haven't covered yet, but I recommend at somewhere in your first week of practice to have what I call the hurdle introduction day, okay? The goal, there's two goals for that. One is for you to identify kids who might be hurdlers. Maybe they never thought about it, but you could find some people who lean in this direction. But also is to from day one teach them how to run over hurdles versus what most kids do, which is run up to a hurdle, slow down, jump over, land, accelerate, slow down, jump over and land, and just keep repeating that for 10 hurdles or 8 hurdles, depending on what your race is. So this hopefully stops that and just teaches them how to do it properly from the beginning. So it teaches them how to maintain a low curve going over the hurdle. It's going to solve most of the errors that you see in hurdling that I've already described, because I don't know if you know this, but part of my specialty is analyzing technique. And I do a lot of sessions where people send me their technique and I'll go over it and I'll give them feedback and show them how to improve. I also get a lot of free requests and I do those once a week. I put them on a live stream. But I see a whole lot of the same things over and over. And they're all the same things: slowing down, jumping up, landing, and then repeating this over and over. And they could almost all be solved if they just ran fast over that hurdle. It's amazing. And then also just know that because most high school hurdlers, certainly the younger ones, are not good at all, just by having your kids get through this, they're already going to be better than most of their competition. Okay. Now here's the strategy that I'm going to suggest that you do on your hurdle introduction day. But before I go over the details, let me just say that this is a best case scenario, because it's going to ask you to have 4 dedicated lanes on a track, 16 hurdles. And I know that a lot of hurdlers and a lot of programs don't have all this. You might only have 1 or 2 lanes that you can use. You might only have a total of 8 hurdles. You might not even have any real hurdles. You might not even have a track. So, I get that. So I can't possibly give the details for every scenario. So what I'm going to do is just give you the best case scenario, and then you figure out a way how to take this concept and modify it for whatever your situation is. Okay, hope that makes sense. So ideally, you've got 4 lanes at least, and then you are going to have 4 hurdles in each lane, so 16 hurdles. You're going to start with some small hurdles, and I just put a picture up here. It could be these, it could be anything you want to. It could be a piece of bamboo stick on top of cones. I don't care, just something where you can go from lower to medium to higher. And this is kind of what the layout is going to look like. Okay, you're going to have your hurdles out there. You're going to have 4 lanes. And in the first lane, now keep in mind, this first phase, they're really low, right? Short hurdles. The first lane, you're going to have them about 7 meters apart, okay? And then the second lane, they're going to be 7.5 meters apart, then 8 meters apart, then 8.5 meters apart. Now, 8.5 is what girls race at. So it might be, just keep in mind that, well, I'll get to that in a second, but just know that they're really close at the beginning. And you're going to put all of your kids in that first lane, the one that in my picture says lane 5. And you're going to have them just run over this and tell them the goal is to stay fast, stay low, and 3-step between each hurdle. Some of them are going to do it in 2 steps. Some big, tall kids might even do it in 1 step. I don't know. But just tell them the goal is to do it in 3 steps. And then once they can do that, then they move over to the next lane. And they do that until they can get it. Then they move to the next lane. They keep repeating that. Now, you might have a kid, a tall, fast, athletic kid who can just get right through every one of them, 4 repetitions, and they'll be done through this whole thing. You might have a kid who might have to do 10 times in the first lane and still not get it, and everything in between. And you might have some that maybe the first 2 lanes are just too close for them and it's too uncomfortable. And you just use your judgment as a coach and you might immediately put them into the 3rd lane. So just understand the concept is to just get them to understand it's about running over hurdles, not jumping over hurdles. And then you progress them as you can. Now, and as I said here, you run them through lane 1, you go to the next one, and then you repeat this for all the lanes. And then once you're done with this, this is what I'm calling phase 1. This is where you assess and eliminate. So you look at all the kids that you ran through here, and the ones that are liking it and doing great and want to do more, you tell them to stick around. The kids that are hating it or not looking good at this and you don't think there's a chance, then they can move on. They can go try jumping or pole vaulting or who knows what else, but they're just not going to be a hurdler, okay? So you take the ones you have left over and you go on to phase 2 and then phase 3. Now it's the same thing, but now each time you're working with taller hurdles, okay? So in phase 2, you do the same thing again with the lane, same spacing, this time little taller hurdles, and you pull all the kids through. Now, one caveat though. Your girls might not be able to make it through the 4th lane, and that's okay. And I'll get into that later, but the boys should definitely be able to make it through all 4 lanes. The girls might only make it through lane 3 and struggle in lane 4, and that's okay. So just keep that in mind. And then phase 3, so basically at the end of the 2nd round, what we'll call phase 2, again, you might eliminate a few more kids, and then you'll do it again for phase 3, this time with 30-inch hurdles. And again, at the end, you're going to eliminate a whole bunch of kids, but you're going to end up with a situation where you're going to have 3 groups. Group 1 are all the kids that you've eliminated. They're either not interested or they're not capable. You're also going to have a group of kids who are interested, but they're just not capable or you don't think they're ready. Those you're going to consider your hurdle development group. Group 3, those are the ones that are capable and interested, and that's going to be your hurdle squad, okay? And so I'm going to show you how to handle both of those. So for your developmental group, moving forward with the hurdles is very much like the hurdle introduction day, okay? Excuse me, we're going to have some lanes out. They might only get 1 lane or 2 lanes, depending on what you got, or maybe they're doing it in the grass or in the field or something, but it's just them learning how to do what you were doing on the introduction day, or and just have them learn how to do it and gradually spreading out the hurdles until they can do it. But that's it. And then there's how do you teach them technique? But this teaching technique doesn't only apply to the kids in the hurdle development group. It also is going to apply to every hurdler you have, because some of them, I guess in here, I never thought about this way, but you can also have 3 categories of kids here. You got the kids who are in hurdle development group, and they can't even get over hurdles at all or run between them the way you were doing. And you're teaching them to get better. And then you've got kids who are in your hurdle squad because they did a great job on the hurdle introduction day, but they're still not good at hurdling. You still need to teach them how to hurdle. And then you got your kids who are the veterans who can hurdle, and maybe they're even pretty good, but there's almost no kid out there, even the great ones, who couldn't improve their technique. So this applies to everyone, what I'm going to show you here. So when you teach technique, I like to have progressive complexity and also progressive speed and distance, okay? Progressive complexity means that for every movement of the technique that you're trying to teach, whether it's your arms or a lead leg or a trail leg, or how to approach the hurdle, how to clear the hurdle, how to pull your trail arm through, whatever you're working on at the moment, it's best to isolate that limb. So let's say, for example, they're working on their lead arm. You want to have them standing in place so they don't have to use their legs, let's say they lead with their left arm. You want to put their right arm at their hip and they only move that left arm. Slowly till they get it right, then you gradually get faster and faster. And as that becomes easy, then you can say, okay, now let's add the other arm. And so you have both arms swinging, one doing a lead, one doing a trail. So you've made it progressively more complex. As humans, we learn better that way. When you throw too many things in at one time, it becomes complicated. So that's why you want to isolate it and then start adding more limbs. And you could add the legs into it by saying, okay, now we're going to do it walking. Or now we're going to do it over hurdles. We're going to do it one stepping, then three stepping. So hopefully you kind of see the progression of how you start very simple and make it more complex. And then you also want to get progressive with the speed and the distance. Here's what I mean by that. Maybe an athlete, okay, let's say you have a hurdler and you put them over the hurdles and they look okay, but their arms are wild, right? Just all over the place. And then you take them through and you show them how to move their arms right. And you do what I just showed you on the left-hand column here, and they're doing great. And then you can do it if they're jogging over hurdles, but then you go to try to race and they back to square one, they look horrible again. Well, that's because that's the way it works, is you can't just do it slow and expect it to work at full speed. So you also need to gradually increase the speed, which also means you're increasing the spacing of the hurdles. So as you're teaching them, you're going to want to go with very reduced spacing at slower speeds. And as they get better, you gradually space them out, okay, as they are ready. Okay, so start slow and add speed as the athlete becomes proficient. My speed progression is you do it standing first, like up against a wall or standing in place. Then you do it walking. Then you do it skipping drills where the hurdles are spaced out, maybe like 6 feet. And then you do jogging drills where they're spaced out farther. And then you go running. You might be running at 80% and then to 90%. And then eventually to 100%. So you basically build a lot of little bridges to get them from the drill to full speed. And that works really well when you're trying to improve technique, okay? All right, so now you still have to deal with all your kids well, I take that back. Now we're done with the kids in the developmental team. Now we're talking about your actual hurdle squad. And what does a practice look like, okay? So I'm gonna just get this out of the way, even though I mentioned it in another slide, because I don't want it sticking in your head, is how often do you do this? I don't have my hurdlers do this more than 3 days a week. So let's say it's a non-meet week, like the first or second week of the season, 3 days a week only. And if we have a meet during the week, that racing day counts as a hurdling day. So the most they would ever do is a total of 3 days over the hurdles, mostly because it's just so tough on the body. And you just want to minimize that kind of stuff, okay? And just know that in general, for all of my sprinters and hurdlers, we only were on the track sprinting 3 days a week, even if it was a racing day. So 2 practices and then a race. The other days we were in the weight room on the other days. It's just something I learned over the years that amazingly decreased the amount of injuries that we had, certainly in the lower legs. It was huge when we did this. I could work them out really hard on Monday, and then there's no pounding on Tuesday, and I can just crush them again on Wednesday, and you repeat that. And it was so much better than when we were running every day. Just something that I've tried, and I think it works well. Not everybody does it that way, but here's the way that I think the hurdle practices need to go. You start off with a hurdle warm-up progression, which I'm going to talk about in a bit. And it's a pretty extensive progression. And then you do your full speed stuff. Then you do your running conditioning. So you're done with hurdling, but you have to do your speed work and your conditioning work. I do know that some hurdle coaches like to do all of their speed and conditioning over hurdles. I'm not in that camp. I think that number one, it messes up your steps. It throws in the possibility of messing with your psyche and starting to stutter with your steps. Also, I think that you'll never run full speed with the hurdles in the way like you could without hurdles in the way. So you can make a kid faster by having them do their speed work without hurdles. That's the way I do it. And let me just throw this in, but keep in mind that I was the head coach and the hurdle coach, so I can make these kind of rules. But something that I evolved to in the second half of my high school coaching career is I would have my hurdlers show up a half hour before everyone else, and they would do their warm up, and we'd be into the warm up progression, and then the rest of the team would show up, and then they would do their warm up, and they would get into their whatever their workout was. And at the same time, my hurdlers are doing their whatever the hurdle of workout of the day was. And then once they finished, it usually coincided with the other sprinters being halfway done with their workout. And I would tell my hurdlers, okay, now go join the sprinters for the second half of their workout. So, because they had already done running with the hurdling, no reason to do the full sprint workout. So that's just the way I did it. And then we would cool down. Okay, so now I want to talk to you about my hurdle warm-up progression, which, by the way, it's part of my hurdling 201. But I'm like most coaches out there, I like a dynamic warm-up. I do have some specific thoughts on that, which I won't really go into today. But basically, I've learned over years what I like and what I don't like, what works in good weather, bad weather, whatever, and I put together a dynamic warm up, and then we'll space the hurdles out. We'll have 8 hurdles out, butted up to each other. You've seen this many times. I probably should have stuck a picture out here, but when the hurdles are like in a row, touching each other, and the kids are going over them, doing hurdle mobility, some sideways, some over, things like that. So we'll do all that standard hip mobility stuff. And then we'll do our drills. And when we do our drills, what I do is I take every other hurdle and move it out. So you have 4 hurdles spaced out with only a hurdle spacing between them. Again, this is all in my hurdling 201. So if you want to take that coupon I give you and get hurdle 201, it's all going to be on there. But this is where they'll do their skipping drills over them. So they'll go over each side and do trail leg drills, each side and do lead leg drills. And they'll also do what's called a hanging trail leg drill. And then what we'll do is, so we're doing them walking and then skipping. And then what we'll do is we're going to spread them out to what I call an off-speed spacing, okay, where they're going to do off-speed hurdling. It's probably not the best description of it. It's just a word I came up with because it's not full speed. It's not half speed. It's about 60 to 80% speed. So I just call it off-speed. And just to let you know what that is for my girls, I tend to space them out to where when I'm walking them, like pacing or walking steps, I'll put them every 8 to 9 steps, depending on the girl, depending on where we are in the season. For my boys, it's usually 9 to 10 steps is where I space them out. Okay. And then we'll start doing drills, some more drills, but now they're running over them, but not full speed. Okay. I already had this here. So sorry, there we go. Okay, so continuing on here. For the off-speed hurdling, here's the way I do it. And I'll just tell you right now that this piece of the workout, I think, is some of the most important coaching that I do and what I recommend you do, because when you're doing this, this is where you can work on the details. You can work on the technique without the athlete having to be focused on full speed. It allows them to do more repetitions because the full speed stuff is what gives them the injuries. So this allows you to do more work without worrying about them getting injured. They don't have to go full speed, so they can actually control their bodies. And then also they're not having to put all their energy into reaching the next hurdle in 3 steps. So they can take the time and energy to work on technique. So that's part of the reason we do this. But so what I'll do is I'll have the kids go over to work on their lead leg on both sides. And so only their lead leg is going over the hurdle. And if they're good enough, they will literally bring their lead leg over that hurdle and move it just as if they were going over the hurdle, working on a perfect lead leg. And they'll do both legs because I like to teach my hurdlers both sides so they're ambidextrous. One, because it balances out their body, but also if they do the 300 hurdles, you know how it goes. Sometimes they'll need to clear the hurdle with both legs. This is a good way to learn how to do that. We'll do the same thing with their trail leg. We'll go a couple of times over both sides. And then it's time to go over the middle of the hurdle. And when we go over the middle of the hurdle, we're going to do it about 4 times on average. In the early part of the season, when we're not doing a lot of full speed work, in fact, we're doing no full speed work, and we're just really focusing a lot on starting to gradually build the endurance and then build technique. We'll do this many times, okay? But as the season moves on and I've got other things I need to get on to, I might only do it 4 times. But the first time they go over with their non-dominant leg, and it might be ugly, but this is them learning how to hurdle with this leg because they'll need to know it. And then I'll have them do it, excuse me, 3 to 4 times with their dominant leg. And to me, this is right here, what I'm getting ready to explain to you, is even the cream of, or the secret sauce of this here is, here's the way to handle it, is what I'm going to do for each athlete. Because at some point you're going to identify, they're going to have multiple issues. Usually they've got at least 3 technical issues they need to work on. Sometimes they're going to have a dozen technical things, but let's say you pick the top 3, okay? And you go to, I don't want to just dictate it to the athlete. I want them to buy in on this. So I'll talk to each of them individually and I'll say, okay, Stephen, what are the top 3 things you need to work on? And then we'll discuss those 3. Okay, Jessica, what are your top 3 things? And so let's call them A, B, and C. So let's say, for example, A is they need to work on going straight into the hurdle with their lead leg. And then B might be working on their lead arm or keeping their arms bent. And let's say that C is running between the hurdles with good steps, landing on the balls of their feet, right? So the first time that they go through these, I'm going to say, okay, first time through, all I want you to do is focus on issue A. That was your arms, okay? Good. And then second time through, I only want you to focus on issue B. That was your lead leg. And then the third time through, I want you to go through and just focus on quick steps, landing on the balls of your feet. And then the fourth time, I'm going to say, great. Now let's pull all 3 of those together and have one really good run through at this. And that's what they do. And this is where the kids learn how to hurdle really well and start to improve over time their technique, okay? In my opinion, there's so many drills that are out there, and a lot of them I don't like, or a lot of them I think are unnecessary. This is what I think is the real meat and potatoes of how to make an athlete better or how to make a hurdler better is right here. So if nothing else that you walk away from this presentation today, if just this, it's going to make you a better hurdle coach and make your athletes better hurdlers. Okay, I'm going to check something real quick. Okay, so I'm just looking at some questions, but I'm going to answer them at the end, like I told you. Okay. Sorry, 1 second. My PowerPoint does not want to move forward. Okay, so now that you've gone through this, it's time now to do some full speed hurdling. Okay, now let me preface this by saying I don't really do full speed hurdling with my athletes in the first 2 weeks of practice, unless they've already been training for a while seriously, and they've already been doing full speed work in the off season, or maybe they're coming off of indoor track or something like that. But even if they're coming out of basketball season, I don't have anybody full speed hurdle unless they've been doing stuff for a couple of weeks and we've gradually built into it. So just keep that in mind. But whenever we do the full speed stuff, it is really the minority of the amount of energy that you're spending in hurdle training. The most of it is what I've already covered. But we always, and I'm going to get this out early on, always pinch the spacing and lower the hurdles a lot. Always. Even when I've had returning state champions, we don't ever, I shouldn't say almost never do we run with full spacing and full height. Okay, now let me cover some questions that you might be having right now. If this is a new concept to you, you might be thinking, but don't I need my athletes to know what it's like to jump over that full height? And don't I need them to know what it's going to be like to run that full spacing? And here's what I'm going to tell you is it's really nearly impossible in a practice situation to replicate what you're going to feel like and be like at a meet. Meaning at a meet, you're fresh, you're more fresh, you're all psyched up, you got the crowd there, your adrenaline is really flowing, and you're able to do things better than you normally can. That's the reason why steps get all messed up in meets. That's the reason why you could practice your 300 hurdles every day and think you have your steps right. And as soon as they get to the meet, they're just running so much faster and taking bigger strides because that's the way that it is. So although you think that you're not getting them ready, you really are preparing them perfectly. Because if you were to do full height and full spacing, it's like spreading out the hurdles farther than race spacing and higher than racing height. So it's really the same. So just know that if you can get a kid, like a boy, to run over hurdles that are 1 click lower than and 12 inches pinched, and they can do it looking good in practice, they'll be totally fine to race. No questions asked. You just say, go out there and do what you can do, and they will be able to fly over the 3 steps, okay? And in a girl, it's going to be maybe like 1.5 feet. I've even seen it to where they're sometimes 2 foot shorter in practice, but they can still manage it in a meet, okay? And the other thing to keep in mind is that spacing will gradually increase as the season goes on. So maybe in the last third or the last fourth of the season, you're getting really close to racing spacing or official race distance spacing, but not until then. So just know that. Okay, moving on here. So we always do some start to the first hurdle because that is so critical. Every single day every day that we do hurdle practice, no matter what we're doing, we're going to go, even if your emphasis that day is to do 300-meter training, we always start with, okay, we're going to do first on the 100-meter, 110-meter spacing, start to first hurdle. And we might do it 1, 2, or 3 times. Just because I want that so ingrained and they have that spacing down so perfect, they can do it any day of the week and it's never a problem. I will also add though, in case you're wondering, because I just told you in the first few weeks, I don't think you should do full speed. You probably want to move your start line a little forward so that you can go from the start to the first hurdle with about 80% speed. And then gradually, maybe the second week, pull it back a little bit. And probably by the third week, you're able to go from the start line to the first hurdle, okay? By the time they're ready for a meet. And then you're going to do some full speed or, wherever you're at in the season over multiple hurdles. Now that could be 2 hurdles, 3 hurdles, 4 hurdles, 6 hurdles, whatever you're doing. It just depends on what you're working on. But if you're doing the full speed stuff, that's when you work on this. And your workout depends on a couple of meaning exactly what the workout is going to be depends on the day of the week. Meaning that there's some days in the week where you're going to say, let's say, for example, you are practicing hurdles Monday and Wednesday, and then you race on Friday or Saturday. On Monday, you might say, the emphasis today is speed. And it also depends on the time of season where you're at, but you're going to say, so we're going to mostly work on the sprint hurdles, but then we're going to do some work going full speed over the first 1, 2, or 3 hurdles of the 300 hurdles. And then maybe on Wednesday, it's more of an endurance-based workout where you're going to say, okay, we're going to do start to finish line a few times, but then we're going to work on hurdling endurance where you're going to spread out, you could put maybe 10 hurdles out really close together and they're just doing multiple repetitions of going over these close, but just working on endurance and good technique, versus what you were doing on your speed day where you're going, more near race distance and going full speed for lesser repetitions, longer rest periods. I hope I'm not confusing people because it can get complicated, but I'll tell you in a little bit how you can work on this. But also, it also depends on the week of the season, meaning, again, at the beginning part of the season, in fact, I have it outlined here. I'll get to that in a little bit. Actually, I've got a chart 2 slides forward. I'll save this one. So as I was sort of mentioning here, 2 to 3 sessions a week, you're going to do some emphasis on your sprint hurdles and then some emphasis on your long hurdles, your 300 hurdles. Sometimes you're going to work on speed. Sometimes you're going to work on endurance. Sometimes you're going to work on speed endurance. As a coach, just like you in your training, hopefully in your speed and endurance training you're doing for all your runners, you're taking them through cycles or a progression throughout the season. You do the same thing with your hurdle training. The first part of the season is slower stuff, working on endurance, and then you're getting into speed endurance, and then you're getting into full speed. And you evolve your hurdle practices, your hurdle workouts throughout the season, just like that, okay? So if you were to look at it, I'm basically talking ahead of all my slides, but the beginning of the season, endurance, middle of the season, speed endurance, end of the season, a lot of top speed stuff, and a lot of mental focus where you're going to do a lot of visualizing, like let's say you put out some hurdles. Let's say you're going to do 6 hurdles and you've got them near race spacing. And maybe you put 2 or 3 hurdlers and they're going to race against each other. And you tell them, I want you guys to imagine that you're at the meet. You really get in their heads and just say, it's all down to the line and, just really get them excited. And then you fire your gun or you slap your hands or whatever you're doing, and they take off full speed, well, as if they're in a meet. And so they can just learn to feel that success and not only have that at a meet, but you want them to be mentally strong as well, okay? So Whew, that was a lot of stuff. So basically, all that together is, what you need to look at, how you progress your athletes throughout the year. And if you can pull this off, you're going to see an amazing, amazing jump in the performance of your hurdlers. And so here's what I want to talk about. At the end, I'm going to show you the coupon for how you can get any one of these. But just to be clear here, Hurdling 101 is an instructional video with a PDF handout, okay? And this is for how to take somebody absolute beginner, and it's step by step. And this is how to make somebody become a better hurdler, and this is a lead hurdler. Each of these is $29. So the coupon I'm going to give you, you can get any one of these. Or I think I mentioned you can bundle them all for $69, so you can apply that $30 to this and get these cheaper. What you might want to also do, and also what I highly recommend, because if you think back to all the complexity that I'm showing you about how to make your workouts change throughout the week and how to balance out your 100-meter hurdles and your 300-meter hurdles and how to progress them from the beginning, the middle, and the end of the season, that's a lot of work. And I've already done all that work for you in my hurdle training plan. And let me go here. It's a very detailed 60-page document with a lot of question and answer. It has every workout that you need from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. It also details out the hurdle introduction day. Like I said, progresses from the beginning to the end. It's proven. I mean, so many of my athletes have been through this, and I know for a fact that it works. I put 100% satisfaction guarantee. Nobody has ever told me they wanted their money back. Usually what I get is people telling me how much it's helped them and how much they like them. It also entitles you to weekly Zoom calls with me to help walk you through this, and then also access to this secret ACE coaches page where there's a lot of Q&A for the coaches that are on this plan, and you can see the answers I've given them. You can see the past Zoom calls, recorded Zoom calls if you can't make it, and then other videos that I put out there, okay? All is part of that. But let me back up something. One thing to know, that you can apply your coupon to any one of these or the bundle of these, or you cannot apply it to just getting this alone. But this is what's called my bronze bundle. My silver bundle is these 3 videos here and my training plan. That's my silver bundle. That's $149. And you can apply that $29 to this. Something to think about, okay? But if you don't want to go that route, hopefully what you learned here today will help you a lot. And then also, going through my videos, you can glean a lot out of that. But, there's some overlap, but nothing like getting these things. So, all right, here's the coupon code. And if you go through the shopping cart, and you'll see it's very clear on there where you can enter this, it's going to give you, it says 20%. It's not 20%. I did a copy and paste here. It's $29. So it's $29 flat rate that you can apply, as I said here, okay? So I'm going to give you a moment still to jot this down if you want to do that. But in a second, I'm going to pop out of this presentation, and then I'm going to see what questions are on there and then try to answer them. If you don't get a chance to write this down, know that I'm going to be sending out this video today, or you could always email me, acemethodcoaching@gmail.com, and I'll give you this code. Okay, I'm going to bounce out now. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. And 36 people here. Wow, that's really good. Okay, let me see what I've got in the chat. How do I go there? Okay. Is this the first one? 248. Okay. So Hannah asked, in phase 1, do we? Um, okay. In phase one, do we three-step in all three lanes? That would be the goal, is to be able to do that. Yeah, that's it. Now, like I said, you might have a situation where your athletes are too tall, too fast, and they just can't comfortably do it in the first lanes. That's okay. Just advance them quickly through the lanes. You just use your judgment on that. Okay. Um, Also, what is the amount of reps for the hurdle warm-up progression continued? Okay, so I think I talked about that. So, and again, it kind of depends on the season, but let's say that, okay, maybe I didn't talk about it. So you do your mobility drills, and we'll go through each of them once or twice. And then we space the hurdles out and we do our skipping drills. I'll usually have them do 2 lead legs, 2 trail legs on both sides. And then, yeah, so that's 4 times through. And then a hanging trail leg, usually 1 time, maybe 2 times through. But it also depends on how much you've got going in the practice. If you've got a lot going on one day and you just want to get through the warm up sooner, you just cut everything in half or whatever you think, use your judgment as a coach. Also, it kind of depends on the time of year. Like the first few weeks of the season where I'm not doing a whole lot of fast hurdling, I'm really doing a whole lot of this off speed stuff and a whole lot of drills just to get their body conditioned, but without all the speed. I might do more at the beginning and then less later. Okay. Hope that answered your question. And then Steve says, how much time should be devoted to stretching? Also, what kind of diet should your hurdlers have to achieve optimal performance? Wow. Okay. Stretching. Here's where might shock some people. And I don't have time to really dive into this because it's a lengthy answer. I have a video on my YouTube channel about stretching. I'll just tell you right now, I'm not a fan of stretching. Um, I'll just tell you why, and then you can see the video for the explanation as to why. I used to do the stretching like everybody did. Always had a lot of injuries, like a lot of coaches did or do, and always trying to figure out every year how to make it better, how to make it better, improving, researching. I tried so many things. I could never get them to not have injuries. And then I discovered 2 things and I implemented them both in one season. So who knows exactly? That's from a scientific standpoint, that's a bad experiment because I just changed 2 factors at once. But I stopped stretching them, and then we also switched to only sprinting every other day and no running for my sprinters in between. For whatever reason, whether it's a combination of those or both, the injuries dropped like you wouldn't believe. It went to almost everybody being hurt to almost nobody being hurt. And those are the 2 things. That video shows you why I believe what I believe. But I do know, obviously, that a lot of successful hurdlers stretch. So take it. I just know what I know works for me. What kind of diet? I like to educate my athletes. So it's been a while since I talked to them about this, but I didn't have any particular diet that I went, but I did talk to them about healthy eating because we would, probably on our off days when we weren't at the track, we would actually meet in the classroom and I'd have a topic. Like I had all my topics scheduled out throughout the season of this is what I want to talk about Tuesday and then Thursday, and then just to educate them, to make them smarter athletes and more mature athletes. And nutrition was some of those, how to eat during the week, how to eat at meets. But there was nothing magical about it. It was just your general smart nutrition stuff. And then, also same thing when it comes to the meets. But I didn't have nothing that I would put a label on to say this is what I would recommend. So hope that helps you. Okay, let's see here. Can I get this Zoom recording? Yes, I'm going to send this to everybody. Thanks for this webinar. Do you recommend exclusively 300 progress like that? Okay, Lauren is asking, do you recommend exclusively 300 meters hurdlers to progress just like the 100-meter hurdlers? Hey, Lauren, can you unmute yourself, or do you need me to unmute? I have to unmute you.
I think I got it.
Oh, no, she unmuted. Okay.
Larry.
1 second here. 1 second. Okay. Now, can you clarify your question?
Sure, and thanks. So I'm interested in only people who are only, or athletes who are only doing 300 hurdles rather than 100 or 110.
Okay.
And so is there a different way to progress them rather than doing the phase one, or would you recommend going through phase one and
Oh,
such?
okay. You're talking about the hurdle introduction day?
That right, and
Yeah.
progressing from there.
You know, I've never thought about that. Probably for the newbies, I would just do the normal stuff. You know what I mean? Like I just outlined there. Even if they're never, it just still, or you could modify it. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, if you can't tell. My wheels are spinning really fast here trying to answer that. You might not even need that. You might not even need it at all. You know, you could probably put out 4 hurdles and put them like on every other blue mark, like every other boys mark, and just say, run over those and see if you like the feel of that, you know, because they'll probably get about, 8 to 10 steps between each hurdle doing that. And they'll get more of the feeling of the fluidity of doing that, but keep the hurdles really low, just to let them feel what it's like. Okay. I hope that helps. Okay.
No, it does. I was thinking kind of comfort over the phase one spacing,
Yeah.
and then go from there. But no, I appreciate your response.
Sure thing. Sure thing. Okay. Elisha, hi. One of the most pressing issues for our groups is boys dropping out as the hurdle heights get so much higher year one between age 12 and 15. Okay. 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 So this is a good one. This is a really good one. Basically, in case you guys don't see the question, it's you got a lot of kids who maybe like it in middle school, and then when they jump up to the taller hurdles, it's so much more daunting that they don't like it, and they drop out of hurdles, and they could have been really good. I do have another video. I've got so many videos on my YouTube channel. One of them is how to clear higher hurdles, and another one is how to hurdle if you're short, or hurdling for short people. But let me just say, before I get into that solution, just know that I always like to take a long-term approach with hurdlers, and they do all mature at different stages, where you might actually have to tell a kid who was really good in middle school, but maybe they're a late bloomer. You might tell them, hey, we're going to keep practicing freshman year, but you might not ever race, at least in the 110s. Maybe you can still race in the 300s, because I'm not going to race you until you're ready. And we both know you're ready. But he might be four-stepping. And there's nothing wrong with four-stepping. In fact, four-stepping is good for the younger ones because it teaches them how to be good with both legs, and it's going to translate into successful 300-meter hurdling. So keep that in mind. And then also the strategy that shorter hurdlers need to do is jump from a little farther back and land a little farther away. That way you can still keep a low curve. But if they can't do that, I would either just have them four-step or just bide their time. Just say, it's okay, we'll keep practicing. You got other events you can do as a freshman, but your time will come and you might enter the scene as this junior, and people are going to wonder, where did he come from? Because you've been practicing, on the side for years. So that's what I would do. I don't ever race a kid until they are physically and mentally ready. Okay. Okay. What cues do you recommend to help athletes with their form? Great question also, because it's usually a lot of the same things, right? So let's say it's arms, um, and in general, obviously it's not always 90 degree with the arms, but in general, that's a good way to think about it. Always keep your arms bent at 90 degrees. So I might say, keep your arms tight, and they know this from working with me at practice. I'll say, okay, keep your arms at 90 degrees. Or if they're pulling back their lead arm and it's going straight, I might say, pull your elbow back, not your hand back. Or I might say, cut off the knee, where they imagine they've got a knife here in their hand, and they want to slice the knee of their trail leg as it comes through, or sweep the knee. Or let's say it's their trail leg coming through and it drops, and I was saying, okay, bring your knee by your armpit. Or I might say, if I want them to come off the hurdle standing up taller, I might say, push your hips forward. Or I might say, bring your hips forward with your trail arm, or stuff like that. Yeah, that's kind of the majority of the ones I do. Okay. Let's see here. How often should they practice full race model, and how often should they jump 10 hurdles in practice? Okay. We never do full race in practice, ever. I've never, ever done that, ever. So the most I ever do hurdling is probably, well, I take that back. If early in the season, when we're working on endurance and we're not doing any full speed work, I've actually had times where I put 12, 14, 15 hurdles out, but they're all really close, right? And they're just going over them, just working like 60, 70% speed. But as they fatigue, as they go on, that's why I tell them, as you get tired, you really got to keep sharp technique, because if you can do that technique good when you're tired, it's going to be really good when you're fresh. Also know that when they get tired is when they tend to get sloppy. So if you can really get them good, then it's going to help them a lot. But we never, so let's say, okay, so you might be thinking, if I don't ever have my kids do 10 hurdles at practice, how are they going to race 10 hurdles? Well, because we do speed endurance training. So we might do 5 hurdles and then walk back, give them a little rest, and then 5 hurdles again, walk back, 5 hurdles again, walk back. I mean, a marathoner rarely runs 26 miles of practice. They're running repeats. It's the same thing in hurdling. We don't train with 10 hurdles because you don't need that. Okay. In fact, it's best not to do that. Okay. You want to do shorter repetitions, faster, and more of them. Okay. So let's see. How can I adjust if I'm super susceptible to shin splints? Okay. If you're an athlete and shin splints is your issue, or if your hurdlers are susceptible, that's where you do less full speed work and more off speed work. And also you can do your off speed work in the grass or on the turf or something like that. Yeah, and only do a few repetitions of full speed. It might be, in your case, that the majority of your training is on the football field with your regular shoes on, and then you'll one time go do full speed, and that's all, because that's all you can handle. So you got another thing is coaches is, what I can present to you is a good structure for most situations, but you're going to have to use your knowledge, your judgment, the art of coaching to tweak it for your situation and individual athletes that you have. Okay. Man, these are great questions. So middle school coach, boys and girls, usually have 20 to 25 minutes a day with them in about two weeks before our first track meet. Okay. Well, just know that in middle school, your standards have to drop a lot. You just cannot, you don't have the weeks, you don't have the time, and you have more kids usually and less talented kids. So it's very much a controlled chaos. And it might be that your practices look a whole lot like the hurdle introduction day every day, and that's what you're doing. And then when you get kids, and then you're very quickly giving them tips, on how to get better. And if you do have a time, you're kind of group instructing how to wall drill, how to, but you're very rarely you're gonna have a lot of time with them. That's the reason why those better kids will end up going to USATF, AAU in the summer and getting more specific training. Not that you couldn't give it to them, but they're in a smaller group of kids. So this is the way that it helps. So what aspects of the technique are the most important to work on first? Okay. The absolute most important is not slowing down at the hurdle. It's better than anything else. You can have wild arms, wild legs, or I should say, you can have perfect arms and everything look great, but if you're slowing down and jumping over that hurdle, you're not going to be fast. So more than anything, you get them used to running up to a hurdle full speed, accelerating into the hurdle, and going as flat as possible over that hurdle. That's the number one thing. And then from there, you can say, okay, now let's make sure that you drive towards that hurdle with your knee. Okay, now let's try to bring your trail leg over. Trail leg is a big deal because it's the engine. It's like what you plant off of. That's what swings over the hurdle, and it's a powerful step to the next hurdle. So trail leg is a big deal. And then keeping the arms tight, 90 degrees, okay? Let's see here. What's the easiest, best way to determine spacing on the hurdles for different drills? There is a lot of trial and error. But I will tell you this. I never bring a tape measure to practice because things you know. So like I said, my hurdle mobility drills will line up 8 hurdles back to back, like the legs are touching each other. And then when we go to the skipping drills, we just pull out every other hurdle. And then so we'll end up with 4 hurdles here, 4 hurdles here, one for the girls, one for the boys. And so they're all spaced out with one hurdle spacing between them. Does that make sense? So it's probably like 4 feet, 4 feet. And that's where we do the skipping drills. And then we go on to the jogging drills, what we call the off-speed work. For my girls, like I said, I will walk them out 8 walking steps. Sometimes 9 if I got some tall, faster girls. For my boys, some boys, 9 walking steps. Some boys, the faster ones, 10 walking steps. And that's where I step those hurdles down, okay? Yeah, so hope that helps. Okay. Okay. Yeah, because I only got 4 questions left. I can do this. My daughter, so 200, 300 meter hurdles, 14 years, trained sprints 3 times per week, started hurdling in October, only gets half hour per week with a hurdles coach. She won the first race and looks competitive. Should she be doing more hurdling than sprinting? She needs to do both because the root of hurdling is sprinting. It's a sprinting race, and you need to have good sprinting form and good sprinting power and everything, efficiency. And really, hurdling is the act of going over the hurdle should be like one exaggerated run step. So she needs both, but what I recommend is warm up, hurdle, and then do sprinting after that. So that's what I would do. If you can do that. If you can't, then I don't like them to hurdle when they're tired. So having them do the sprint workout and then be tired and then hurdle after that, I don't recommend. Because when you're fatigued, you're sloppy and you're slow, and all you're doing is training your nervous system to move slow and sloppy. So hurdling has got to be quick and fast. So you always do it when you're fresh. So that's the way I would do it if possible. Okay, thank you. You're welcome. Okay, so whenever Jalen asks the question, because I had mentioned that sometimes in the early season, I'll put them like a whole bunch of hurdles out. Again, it might be 8, 9, or 10 walking steps. Just the same, kind of the same spacing we use whenever we're doing all the off-speed work, okay? Brittany, first year hurdles and sprint high school coach priors. Please say again, what are the good combined drills for speed and endurance days? Okay, I think I know what you mean by that, like the actual workouts, because the drills, we do the same drills all year long. Because it's actually, in case you're wondering, we do the same warm-up progression even at meets, okay? But the workouts change depending on the time of year and the emphasis of the day. And it's impossible for me to cover all of the workouts, but just know that, for example, if we're working on endurance, we're working with like what I earlier said, where we might do a whole bunch of hurdles, but they're close together and low, and they're going over them at about 60, 70, 80% speed. Sometimes we do something called a 4x4, where you do, well, there's a couple ways to do it. One is you do 4 hurdles, and then they might just walk back and just repeat that multiple times when they start to get tired. Or you can have them jog back and then go again, jog back, go again. Or you could put out 4 hurdles in one direction, 4 in the opposite direction, and they run over 4, turn around over a cone and come back. Give them several minutes to recover and repeat that. That's a good way of building endurance and working on technique in the early part of the season without them going full speed and getting hurt, okay? And then for the endurance stuff, speed endurance, it could look like, okay, you're doing your first 3 or 4 hurdles and then sprinting to the end. Or let's say you're working on your 300 hurdles and you go over the first 3 hurdles at regular spacing, full speed like you're racing, and then you jog around half the track, and then you do your last 3 hurdles as fast as you can. There's so many different workouts. Again, all of them are mapped out, outlined in my hurdle training plan. So I highly recommend you invest in that, but it will help you a ton, because it's hard to put all this together and know what time of year and what day of the week and everything. So, okay. All right. So I'm just no more questions and some thank yous. So I want to thank everybody for jumping on. Spread the word. I might do this again. Not that you would need to do it. I might just do another one in a week or so, because there's other coaches who didn't know about this. So, but I'm also going to, once I'm done here, I will edit this. Probably won't have to just chop off the beginning, the end, or whatever. And then I will upload it onto YouTube, and I will send you a link. I will email you a link so you can see this. But that's it. Know that I'm a resource for you. If you have any questions, reach out to me at acemethodcoaching@gmail.com. But more than anything, I'd love that you to become an ACE coach. And you got my program, and I'm answering your questions on a regular basis, and hopefully seeing you in Zoom calls on a regular basis. So that's it. Have a good day. Coach Ace out.